Ho, ho, holy day, blessings, friends. This is Gemini Brett here on 12/12/2019 with the starry mysteries of a Christmas story for EA Zoom meetings. What is the star on the top of the tree? And what is the tree, and how has it fallen into this odd Black Friday wrestling match for flat screen TV scene? You could just get the kids crying, you know? By the way, a very important disclaimer here. This video, this transmission is not for the kids who have that twinkle in their eye, waiting on that special night for Saint Nick and the reindeer's hooves to go click, click, click on the rooftops. I am the last one that would want to take away mystery and magic from the youth or anyone. The reason why I came into this starry story of Christmas in the first place is because I saw when a nephew of mine was shaken awake through the great reveal and lost connection to Father Christmas, who was like his highest magical ideal. I just saw magic in total stripped from this beautiful being. And my idea at the time was, well, how can we actually utilize this strange awakening, not to take magic away, but to bring more of it around? Like a mystery school initiation. Oh, you figured out that this first level of the mysteries was not necessarily true. Well, this is the gateway into level 2. Let me show you the real magic. And this has been done many ways by playful and powerful parents around the land. One of my favorite that I've heard of is when a young child had the great reveal. Dad said, "Now you can be a Santa." And the kid said, "What does that mean?" He says, "We deliver gifts anonymously. Who have you seen around our neighborhood that could use something at this time of the year?" And the kid said, "Well, Miss Crinkle down the road, every morning she gets out to grab her newspaper in the cold. Let's bring her some slippers." And so dad and child, the newly initiated Santa, went on a ninja mission in the middle of the night and dropped a box wrapped in beautiful paper on Miss Crinkle's doorstep. And she opened her new slippers, a surprise from some anonymous Santa out there in the world. I love that. For me, of course, as a student and teacher of the star mysteries, when contemplating how can I find this level 2 and level 3 and level 4 that I can present to the kids as they awaken from the old tales, or better said, the new tales of what this thing is, and bring them into greater connection with nature. And astrology is a great route because astrology is so much more than some symbolic language alone. Astrology is the poetic breath of nature. So I looked to the sky one night, contemplating the starry lights on the world tree, and found Santa's sleigh circling around. And I seek to present that to you today. This Christmas, we have a kind of rare, really every 19 years, the Metonic cycle, solar eclipse. And much more rare, aligned to Jupiter, who we know many astrologers compare energetically to Santa Claus. I think Saturn Claus might have something to say about that. It wasn't long ago when this time of December solstice in Rome brought the great ceremony of Saturnalia. We can reach back deeper and find some analogs bringing light from the shadow of time, and find Odin, who hung himself on the world tree for 9 days to receive the runes. Odin with the 2 ravens who would fly around the 9 realms and bring back the news of who's been naughty and nice. Odin, Yulnir, the Yule God, if you will. I highly recommend this book, The Winter Solstice by John and Caitlin Matthews, to tune into these Odin, Saturnalia, Siberian shamanism, tree and the deer of rain scene. It's a wonderful text packed with all sorts of information that also asks this question, as we will today: how did we get here from this place, the nativity scene? I mean, when I ask my nieces and nephews, what is Christmas about? The second thing that's presented is this tree. The first, of course, is the Santa scene. And it takes me further investigation to get to the idea of what would be taught in the church on Christmas Eve, where, of course, they are celebrating the birth of Christ. Now, there's nothing saying December 25th with this young son of man, but this reaches back into older traditions and older Messiah figures like Mithras, or sun figures like Horus, and that's also a tale for another time. Let's play this game that the astrologers, the Magi, came with their gifts following that Eastern star to bring to the newborn king on Christmas Day, Christmas Day, right? Now, the Eastern star is actually of a higher level of the mysteries. Today, we're going to talk about a star in the north. So the newborn king, as they sing, who died on the cross. His birth time was an interesting time in regards to the cross. I'm going back in time here and showing how the alignments of the constellations with the signs or the directions change. So we processed back to 1 AD. And this is the time when the ecliptic plane, the path of the sun, intersected the celestial equator, the plane of our daily rotation. And in astrology, at least in tropical astrology, we call this the Aries point at this great cross of the heavens, the crossing of the planes of Earth's yearly motion, the ecliptic, and Earth's daily motion, the equator. 0 degrees, tropical Aries. Now, this whole fish thing, okay? The one who was born, the good shepherd, the son of the lamb, and became the great teachers of men, teaching men how to fish and such, the great fish miracles. Well, at this time, 1 AD, or which is also 1 BC, I think we should call it BP for before Pisces, because this is the time when the Aries point, that cross, precessed to the constellation of the fish. But this tertiary motion of the Earth, as the axial precession is called, is definitely higher on the mysteries list. Let's consider the truth that every year, through the secondary motion, the annual motion, Earth's orbit about the sun, we on Earth see sun orbiting us. And every year, sun finds its way to this cross of ecliptic and equator at 0 Aries, right around Easter time. The time, wrong guy. The time of Christ, or the Son, on the cross. The night before, Christ and the 12 apostles. What is that disc he holds, this sun? Oh, perhaps we're talking about the sun's visit to the 12 signs and the 12 constellations of the zodiac, the secondary motion, the annual motion. And of course, when the sun reaches the Sagittarius Capricorn cusp in the northern hemisphere, the longest night, and these Christmas trees come round. Now, what is that star on the top with all these ornamental lights? So we're going to see how this relates to the directions. As with so many indigenous wisdom traditions, truly the tropical zodiac is a shamanic system based upon the energies of the cardinal directions. And that's a higher level of the mysteries, because today we're not going to speak so much about the signs or the secondary motion, the annual motion, the sun through the signs, but rather we'll speak about where the directions originate. And this is in the primary motion, the star on the top of the tree. And here we see Santa Claus in the North Pole with that naughty and nice list. And again, we can get really deep into all of these themes. Why the red and the white? Why soot or coal as it is now? Why stockings too? Why candles and bells? Why holly and mistletoe? Amazing things. And I recently recorded a podcast with Astrology Hub with Amanda Walsh that you can hear soon, where we got into a bunch of those themes some years ago on my own podcast, the Starry Telling podcast, my dear friend, master musician, Maria Stark. And I recorded a bit of mystery and perhaps more comedy than others, what many would prefer, called the Santa Pause, that you can find your way to online. Just search the Storytelling Podcast, Santa Pause. And we get into a lot of those themes, but today, really, again, I want to talk about the star on the top of the tree, the energies of the directions and where they come from, and why this cat lives where he does, and maybe why we see him even in this image hanging out with a polar bear. Fascinating. So the directions are established by the primary motion, the spinning of Earth about its axis, which brings such events as day and night. I mean, I don't think we have to go any further than day and night to show that astronomical happenings have energetic influences on earthlings, right? The flowers open to receive the light and close at night to dream and rest. Now, the Earth spins about the north-south axis, which I like to call the spine of Gaia, or the sword of our stone, or perhaps the world tree. East-west is the plane of this rotation, which is called the celestial equator. And I think you can see why here. It's Earth's equator projected out towards space. Now, on the northern side, that world tree, that sword of our stone, that spine of Gaia points towards the north celestial pole. And in our time, the star Polaris is right there. So when we see northern sky images or star trail animations like this one that I made in Sedona, Arizona some years ago, we will see that all of the stars are revolving about one star in the middle, Polaris, again, because here in the middle of the celestial equator, the north celestial pole, in our day and age, and this changes with precession, again, a story for later mysteries, the north celestial pole is featuring a very strong alignment with the star Polaris, pole star, north star. Now, Polaris won't hold this name for long and hasn't had this pole star name for long because it won't always be our pole star. And again, a tale for another time. But friends, if you live in the northern hemisphere, get out to the northern sky and meet this star that is at the hub of the wheel. Think about watching a bike tire spin on a stand, you know, all the spokes blur. That's the stars going about that middle point that does not move. And in our day and age, this is the star Polaris, so strongly aligned to the north celestial pole. So if we meet Polaris, if we give our hearts to North Star, we get directions. This would put east, the rise on our right, and west, the rest on our left. So I like to reach my arms out and put my eastern palm up and my western palm down, because the eastern sky rises and the western sky sets. Why does the eastern sky rise? Why does it ascend? This is happening because of the Earth's spin. The eastern sky ascends because Earth descends in that direction, just as we descend into matter to lift spirit up. And so here in the first level of the starry mysteries of the Christmas story, we will engage with the experience of the primary motion, the spinning of Earth about the axis, which defines the directions. And I'm not talking about magnetic north and south. I'm talking about the real deal, those places where the spine of Gaia, the sword of our stone, the world tree points, the centers of the turning of the sky. And again, in our day and age, Polaris is so strongly aligned to North Celestial Pole on the northern side, which is the tail star of the Little Dipper, or Ursa Minor, the Little Bear. Now there's a big bear close by called Chase the Cat, actually called Ursa Major, the big bear, right? For some reason, the bears in the sky have long tails, which is not the scene on Earth. Now, Ursa Major has an asterism within this constellation that we call Big Dipper, or some call it the Wain, the wagon. And we can use the last two stars of the cup of the Dipper to direct our gaze towards North Star, towards Polaris. So we call those the pointer stars. Now, because, one more thing, when Big Dipper is not available in your northern hemisphere sky, you can use a constellation on the other side, Cassiopeia, the Queen, to direct your gaze towards the North Celestial Pole to help you get directions. So at this time, we see Cassiopeia kind of looking like an E. But because the North Star is at the center of the wheel, we're going to watch Cassiopeia later during the course of the night move from E to W. So just notice that all the stars are rotating according to the primary motion about Polaris. Now Cassiopeia looks like a 3 and later like an M. You can draw lines from Polaris through the pointer stars and down the handle of the Dipper to find another very interesting mystery from long ago. But again, very importantly, Polaris in our day and age is the center of the primary motion of the northern sky, which moves in the north counterclockwise. This is an ancient depiction, I believe, of folks, star keepers, who were honoring the movement of the northern sky and how it appeared to their eyes. They didn't have advanced photography techniques like star trails or time lapse. And if you just watch the sky and spend some time, you will see everything apparently spiraling around that North Celestial Pole. Of course, this happens for the Southern Hemisphere as well. We look to the southern sky where the east to west motion or primary motion of Earth's daily rotation is clockwise. There in our day and age is no star aligned to the South Celestial Pole. So we work with constellations nearby like the Southern Cross. Let's look south now. And we'll see this east to west motion, clockwise motion, which in the Northern Hemisphere we used to call sunwise. So let's speak about the quadrants of the astrological chart, right? First, the hemispheres, right? Below the horizon, which is the horizontal line of the chart, we see nothing because that's the ground, right? So only one hemisphere or two quadrants of our charts is actually visible. Now the hemispheres, the two, are split into 4 through this vertical line you see here, which is called the meridian. The meridian, wherever you are, runs through the cardinal directions, north and south, runs directly overhead through the nadir, zenith, runs directly below your feet at the top of the sky of the other side of the world, which is the nadir, okay? And because it's a north-south line running from Earth's south pole to Earth's north pole, or if we project this to the heavens through the south and north celestial poles, this is our local reflection of Gaia's spine, of the world tree, the sword of our stone. And it brings our attention to the astrological angles, which I like to call the rise, the reach, the rest, and the root for the ascendant, midheaven, descendant, and I see, imum cele, bottom of the heavens, respectively. So of course, every day the sun rises because the earth spins, and the sun rises into the fourth quadrant of the chart, reaching the midheaven, the highest light, the middle of the day, and then coming down through the third to rest in the west, going underground in the second quadrant to root at the IC, where we strangely begin our days because that's when the sun begins its climb. So what a strange thing that the sun rises not into the first, but into the fourth. Or if we think about the houses, why does the sun rise into the 12th house? I should say, by the way, that this is way more than I would teach into the kids who are being initiated into the second levels of the Christmas mystery. But of course, this is a video for EA Zoom meetings, and we should talk astrology a bit, or in this case, the sacred astronomy. So why does the sun rise into the 12th, not into the first? Have you asked yourself this? Here's a moment in time, around equinox in 2018, it looks like I've chosen. We're gonna take the atmosphere away so the stars will show, just so that we can see at this time the sun is in the 12th house, which means it has risen, and look at Mercury and Venus aligned in the first house. Well, because in the southern sky, where the northern hemisphere finds the midheaven, the reach, the daily motion is sunwise or clockwise. This means that these planets in the first house, and this is true in any hemisphere for planets in the first house, they will be the first to rise after this moment's time. Where we see the sun here in the 12th, the sun's going to have to reach, rest, root before it can come to rise again. So the very truth that we call the 12th and the first, when we're looking at a fixed moment of time, like a birth chart, basically brings our attention where? To the ascendant. So here we'll see Mercury and Venus rising first, and then the moon. And Orion now in the first house is rising up. Orion in the 12th at that moment of time would have to go all the way around to rise again, right? So the stars and planets in your first house will be the first to rise after your birth, and those in the 12th will be the last to find their way all the way around to meet you at the ascendant, the hour marker, the horoscopos. Okay, another moment in time here so we can interface with this strange thing that is the delineation of the 12th as hidden things. That's so weird to me because, of course, the sun rises, Jupiter rises, Saturn rises, everybody rises into the 12th house. I'm pointing east from where I am, by the way. The camera's probably flipped. But over here, of course, in the east, it's the 12th house that brings things like the sun after rising into visibility. I could never see the first house, it's below ground. But if I turn this camera that way, you would also see that I don't see much of the 12th house either. Why? Because there's a large hill that way, or often we'll have mountains or trees or maybe city buildings. So one of the reasons why the 12th house is hidden things is because it's obscured. So it's often the case where we don't even see the sun until it's in the 11th house. And the sun, of course, reaches its height at the midheaven and then begins coming down. Why don't we call the 7th house hidden things as well? I mean, in the West, there's typically mountains and hills and trees or whatever it may be. Even if you're at the ocean, the choppy waves keeping you from seeing the exact horizon. Yeah. Well, dig that and let's just watch this again. We'll never see be through the mountains of the 12th, and where did the sun even come from? But in the West, we can project where the sun is going to set, even if it hides behind a mountain or whatever it may be. Well, where do we do our greatest projections but in relationships? So relationship might be associated with the 7th because sunset is like the beautiful time of the day and we want to hold hands, you know. But if we personify the two that I've chosen to show here as Uranus and Gaia, the heavens and the earth, of course, the primary motion of the heavens, the spinning of the stars, happens because Earth is spinning in the other direction. Earth spins west to east, so we notice the heavens from Earth spinning east to west. And the truth is, the sky sets in the west because Earth is rising for the great kiss there in every moment's time. We could bring these two over to the east, and again, why do the heavens rise at the ascendant? Because Earth is falling in that direction to greet them. So this idea of hidden things over there also just teaches us, because we will never really know where the sun is going to rise, unless, of course, we're tracking and keeping a horizon calendar, as we all should. But even if you do, every sunrise is such a surprise, filled with awe and wonder, a mystery. So it is a relationship on that side. It's just our relationship to the great mystery, to spirit. Sun finding its way down now to the roots, the bottom of the heavens, the eye see, where strangely again we begin our days, because of course this is where the sun begins its daily climb. Do you know the sun is said to joy in the 9th house? Why? Because how do you feel after you've climbed to the top of the mountain? Exuberant, right? And that's where the sun completes its daily climb, at the midheaven, where, according to the primary motion, the 10th becomes the 9th. But let the sun rise again and ask this question one more time. Why is the 12th house hidden things? Well, note that when the sun rises, all of the stars get hidden, because this beautiful one we call the sun is so close by. All right. Back to the starry stories of a Christmas mystery. Well, I used the wonderful software Stellarium to create these animations that you're seeing of the primary motion. And I chose very specifically the equator to do so, because there at the equator, the celestial poles are right on the horizon. There's a wonderful principle that I call the latitude principle, which is that the altitude from the horizon, where the horizon is 0 and the zenith above your head is 90, the altitude of the North Star for the Northern Hemisphere, or the South Celestial Pole, which I like to call the South Pole Space, since there's no star there in our day and age, the altitude to your local celestial pole equals your latitude on Earth. So I'm recording right now from Marin, California at about 38 degrees north latitude. And tonight I can find the North Star due north 38 degrees above my horizon. So at the equator, which has a latitude of 0, the North Star, North Celestial Pole, and the South Celestial Pole are on the horizons, which means that the celestial equator, right, the plane of our motion, is running through the zenith directly above 90 degrees celestial altitude, right? 90 degrees is square. The plane of Earth's rotation is always square to the pole of the world tree. So at the equator, the poles are on the horizon, and the celestial equator runs directly through the zenith above, and of course we can't see it, but directly up through the nadir below. Okay, and it just is helpful to create animations where I have a perfect wheel like this. All of this, again, due to the celestial motion. So my question now is, where is that star Polaris, which is always at the top of the world tree in our day and age? Where can it be seen at the top of the sky? I'll move this to December solstice time, where it's always night. And maybe this guy will give us a clue, right? Why does Santa live at the North Pole? Because it is the North Pole of Earth where we see the celestial North Pole, or in our day and age, Polaris, right above the star on the top of the tree. And of course, these other twinkling lights are representing all of the other stars, but it is Polaris in our day and age that keeps still during the spinning of the earth by day. So it's a wonderful thing to just imagine wherever you live on earth, where would the North Star be? As I said, the latitude principle, the altitude to North Star or to the South Pole space being equal to your latitude, right? And the North Pole is at 90 degrees north latitude. So the North Star is at 90 degrees altitude, in other words, right at the top of the sky. So the whole sky there at the North Pole spins like a big top, whereas the equator, it spins like a wheel. And when you're somewhere in between, like I'm at 38 degrees north, I'm more like the wheel than I am like the big top. You see? Somebody in, Salem, Oregon, or Minneapolis, Minnesota, 45 degrees, halfway between the equator and the North Pole, is going to see something just in between the big top spinning and the wheels spinning. Yeah. So I chose the wheels spin at the equator to show a lot of those things about, mysteries of house delineation. And I do a lot more of that, by the way, in the video that I borrow that from, that I'm creating for the Organization for Professional Astrology. I'll tell you a little bit more about that at the end of this transmission. Let's bring ourselves back to Santa Claus and try to find this guy in the sky. Now we know why he lives at the North Pole, because this is the place where we see that star that's on top of the world tree, the Christmas tree, if you will, the evergreen, the one that defines our directions at the North Pole. Again, we see that star that's always on top of the tree at the top of the sky. All right, so let me dim the other lights here, and we're going to just kind of rearrange the team and see Santa flying through the night with his 8 reindeer. You know, interestingly, Odin rode an 8-legged horse. And I present Santa's sleigh, the wain, the wagon, right? What many of us call the Big Dipper. So the cup of the dipper would be like Santa's sleigh, and the team of reindeer are running through the handle stars of the dipper, and then through the neighboring constellation Bootes, which has a very bright, big orange star called Arcturus. So just as the 2 cup stars at the end of the Big Dipper can be used to point to Polaris, to North Star, we can follow the arc of the Dipper to Arcturus, a giant red star. Whose nose is that? Rudolph, right? To help Santa fly through the fog of Christmas night. So I present to you this image of the first level after the revelations of the Christmas mysteries that really tune us to the primary motion, to the spinning of Earth on her axis, the motion of day. The next level of the mysteries, we engage with the motion of the sun through the course of the year. Of course, the Christmas tree coming around winter solstice, aligned to so many other ancient traditions that celebrate the rebirthing of the light from the longest night. Of course, in the southern hemisphere, to bring us balance, it's the growing of the darkness from the longest day. Yeah. But we still string lights on the tree because they are the stars on the spine of Gaia, the sword of our stone, the world tree that defines the directions. So let's watch Santa and his reindeer with Rudolph's Arcturus nose at the front travel during the course of Christmas Day. Everything spins about North Star in 24 hours. So there's Santa on his sleigh with his team of reindeer led by Rudolph will, in this one night, or one day and night, 24 hours time, go all the way around the world, delivering toys to all the boys and girls. Can you dig it? All right. So the first level of the starry mysteries of the Christmas tale will bring us to the spinning, the primary motion. If you want to dig more into some of the sacred astronomy teachings, please check out my website, geminibrett.com. Check out the courses page, and you can receive 12 free sacred astronomy lessons. If you want to go deep into the mysteries, at Zion National Park in April of 2020, I will be presenting, leading, even initiating, maybe I will say, star students into a sacred relationship in celebration of the marriage of heaven and earth. So astronomy for astrologers, but I'm not going to do this just in nerdy, geeky ways. I will do some, as you saw today. I will use a lot of animations, like some of the delineations of the houses pictures that you saw here and moving pictures I'm creating for this course, and also for OPA's Fundamentals of Astrology course. I'm very happy that OPA has decided to make astronomy for astrologers part of their certification process. I think it's so important. And with Uranus and Taurus, we celebrate more this marriage of heaven and earth. So getting out and connecting to the measurable heavenly happenings, the quantity of the heavens, astronomy, the stuff we can put a ruler to, will help us have an intimate experience and expression of the qualities of those heavenly happenings, the correspondences. Of course, astrology is the bridge between the two. So at this Astronomy for Astrologers retreat, we will spend time in the classroom with the little screen and lots of animations and all questions answered. But more importantly, we'll get out to the big screen together, side by side, and move through practices of developing a more intimate connection with the living sky. So head to opaastrology.org and you can learn more about the Fundamentals of Astrology course. You can learn more about the Zion retreat. I'll be speaking at part 1 and then leading Astronomy for Astrologers at part 2. I hope you'll consider joining us in this incredibly sacred space. Thank you very much for joining me today. You can find more of me at geminibrett.com. If you scroll down just a bit on the home page, you will find a special deal I've got going on right now. Just a mini session introducing my methods of tuning into your star song, Sun, Moon, and Earth sessions for $33. So if you're interested in meeting and seeing how I, again, tune into your song and present the starry mysteries, is a wonderful way to arrange for us to meet. Thanks again for tuning in to the Starry Mysteries of a Christmas Story. I hope you will head out there, Northern Hemispherians, and meet Polaris and the Dipper and the stars of the handle running through our Buates, the herdsman, interesting, to that great red star, the red nose of Rudolph the reindeer, and watch Santa and his sleigh and this team moving all around the world throughout the course of the day. They can't be seen in most Southern Hemisphere locations, but you get gifts too, because you're even deeper, therefore, in the mysteries. And of course, the wheel in the north and the wheel in the south are working for the whole globe. Holiday blessings to you, friends. I will see you in space.